important issue, you need to come in and sit and legislate over it. Or he can adjourn both houses, which Jefferson did in the first summer of his presidency. He sent both houses home saying that all you're going to do is sit around and make laws that the public doesn't need to have. So get out of here and go home. And he sent them home. Commission all officers of the United States. I get my commission directly from the President of the United States. So how many responsibilities did people give to the President in the Constitution? And this is responsibilities. These are things that he must do. Close. You're very close. Good job. He's the Commander-in-Chief when called into actual service in the United States. If you look in the Constitution, it says that. So he's not the Commander-in-Chief unless the service is in, unless they are called to actual service. So the Chief Executive or the President is not the Commander-in-Chief when they are not. And that's important because everybody says, oh, he's the Commander-in-Chief. Well, no, he's only Commander-in-Chief when the Army's called off and we're actually fighting. And to give the State of the Union address, he's required to give this annually. To receive ambassadors and other public ministers because he is the chief diplomat of our nation. And ensure our laws are faithfully executed. So he has a responsibility to execute the laws of our nation. He's not there to make up stuff or do stuff or decide what to execute or not. No, Congress says this is a law. The President is supposed to execute it. How did our founders intend the Electoral College to work? Does anybody here know how the Electoral College was supposed to work? The Electoral College was set up because, again, I'll go back. The House was elected for 2 years. The Senate was elected for 6 years. The President was supposed to be the intermediary between those two houses, and he was elected for an average of those 2 terms of 4 years. And as such, because the House was supposed to be popularly elected, and the Senate was the rule of the few, state legislatures, the Electoral College was set up to be a combination of both, a popular vote and a rule of few type of vote. Now, our founders intended that the state legislatures would appoint the electors, and electors would be equivalent to the number of representatives and the 2 senators for each state. So, in 1824, when John Quincy Adams and Andrew Jackson were competing, there were 16 states that went to the general ticket. And the general ticket said that if 51% of the people voted for this one candidate, that all those votes went for that candidate. And that there were 6 states that retained this electoral college system. Andrew Jackson won both the popular vote and the electoral college vote, but he was not elected president because he did not win it by the majority necessary. He went to Congress and they decided that John Quincy Adams would be the president. And John Quincy Adams only served for 1 term because a lot of people thought he had stolen the presidency. But either way, the electoral college is very important, and the way the general ticket works is that we've taken the voice away from individuals in the hinterland, and we've given it to the majority, the tyranny of the majority. So that the urban centers dominate a lot of the states. You take New York. New York City dominates the rest of the state, and the people of upper state New York really don't have a voice. If we were to go back and reestablish somewhat of the electoral college, where each congressional district voted for an elector, and that elector voted for whom that congressional district wanted, and that the state legislatures could appoint 2 electors per state, and everybody would have a bigger voice. And we have the authority to do that because the Federal Election Commission has not usurped their authority in that power yet. Each state could have restore the voice to the hinterland. And I'll give you Pennsylvania as an example. You have Pittsburgh and Philadelphia that dominate that state. But the rest of the state is mostly red, meaning Republican. If we were to go back to this, where each congressional district voted for an electorate, instead of looking at a sea of red and blue, what you would see is a mosaic of red and blue in each state. And it would be a better representation of the people as a whole, and get back to our Republican form of government that we're These are the advantages of the Electoral College. The most enlightened citizens would serve. In other words, they would appoint people who understood the Constitution and would cast a vote for those who were best qualified to uphold the Constitution. At least that was the intent. And it was to avoid popular votes. Again, that's kind of where we are right now, because the Electoral College is mere footnote. We know on the first Tuesday in November who the president's going to be, because the electors have already been assigned to vote for whoever that state goes for. public easily misled by choosing a national leader, and you see that today, that the public is easily duped and told, lies or whatever, and it's steered by the news media or whomever, to tell them whatever, and they don't research it themselves. So you need somebody who understands the Constitution, is able to make an educated decision. And it was less objectionable to alternatives. In other words, this is not a perfect solution, but it's a better solution than anything else out there. And it avoids capital and foreign influence, because today with our elections are influenced by foreign powers who donate money, even though that's really not allowed. It does happen. We have electors who can know and judge the candidates, as I explained before. So does the Supreme Court have the power to make law? They do not. And it's right here. Article 1, paragraph 1, sentence 1 of our Constitution. Yeah. All legislative powers here are granted invested in Congress of the United States. So if all are vested in there, granted them, then none are there for the executive or the judiciary. So our judiciary has no authority to make law. How many powers did the people give to the judiciary in the Constitution? 1. How many say more than what the president got? Less than what the president got? Less than what the president got? That's right. 4. And here they are. Judicial power shall extend to all cases in law and equity arising under this Constitution, laws, and treaties. So they had original jurisdiction in some cases and appellate jurisdiction in some cases, but all of it was just in jurisdiction in court cases. So they had original jurisdiction in cases dealing with ambassadors, public ministers, and councils, in the admiralty and maritime jurisdiction, controversies to which the states shall be party. So if there's a state and no state controversy, the Supreme Court has original jurisdiction in that. But here's where they have appellate jurisdiction. An appellate jurisdiction means that it can start at a lower court and appeal to the highest court of land, and so they don't see it originally. In a state, a citizen of another state, which was repealed by the 11th Amendment due to the Chisholm versus Georgia Supreme Court case, that they ruled in favor of Chisholm. And the state said, wait a second, there's an imbalance of equity here, and so we need to correct that, and they did, the 11th Amendment, so that no longer can they see that case at all. Citizens of different states, citizens of the same state claiming lands under grants of different states, and a state or its citizens and foreign state citizens or subjects. So those are the 4 powers of our judiciary, and that's it. They have no authority to set a precedent in society or to make up laws or implement laws or anything else. This is it. They can only try the law as it exists and based on our founder's original intent. So what is meant by law and equity? A lot of people don't understand this concept, but it's very important because in England, they had 2 separate courts for it. They had a court for law and they had a court for equity. So you went and you were tried and found that you were guilty of some law. You went to another court to get your sentence, so that the punishment was detached from the crime, and you often got some ridiculous punishments. In our nation, we have law and equity in the same court, so that the punishment will fit the crime if you're found guilty. Law is the established rule, biblical judgment, and law. And over here you have equity, which is punishment, justice, and grace. So you try the person for the law and you find them guilty, then under equity you say, okay, well, how did you break this law? And you make sure the punishment fits the crime. What is the term upon which judges from the Supreme and inferior courts hold their office? Life. So in Article 3, Section 1, it says that the judges both of the Supreme and inferior courts shall hold their offices during good behavior. Yes, one in the 1800s. I forgot the details of it, so I apologize. But yeah, there was one Supreme Court justice that was removed, that was impeached. Yes. Now, good behavior is not just higher crimes and misdemeanors. It's if you take this law and you misinterpret it blatantly, you can be impeached for that. That is bad behavior. If you look to Europe and say, oh, they set a precedent for this law and we're going to instill it in this nation. No, that is bad behavior and it can be impeached. And we can impeach these Supreme Court justices. We can kick them out. We can impeach the inferior court justices, like the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. They can be impeached. All it needs is for we, the people, to say, wait a second, you've overstepped the bounds. That's bad behavior. tell our representatives to impeach them and to make sure that our senators hold their feet to the fire and find them guilty for what they've done.
How is that done? How are they impeached? Congress?
Right. The impeachment process works like this. The House of Representatives impeaches somebody, and you say, okay, you've broken the law. Then the trial is held in the Senate. In normal cases, the Supreme Court justice presides over the Senate and has the trial. But in one in which one of the justices are being tried, the Vice President will preside over the Senate. Yeah, so it's good to know. So it's not for life. Why does Congress have the authority to limit appellate jurisdiction in specific cases? I find this very interesting. And the reason that they're allowed to do this is because they want to make sure that our Supreme Court does not, that they focus on laws and cases, on cases that are of national importance. So if they're looking at cases that have non-national importance, and you have these other cases that are waiting to be seen, our Congress can step in and say, Congress, you do not have the authority or the power to look at this case. We want you to review these other cases. So Congress is over our judiciary, and they have authority over it. Why is trial by jury so important to our justice system? Does anybody know? You ever thought about trial by jury? Trial by jury preserves our rights and our liberties. Right. Because when you go and sit on a jury, you're not only trying to listen to the testimony of the person to find out whether they're guilty, you're trying the law as well. If the government comes in and makes up a law that you think is unrighteous or unlawful, you have the authority to say, no, he may have broken the law, but the law's wrong, so he's not guilty. We have a grand jury which you go in front of to see whether a crime is committed, and then you have the regular jury in which they try it for guilt or innocence of that. In both cases, they can say, look, I don't find this person guilty because this law is not valid. And that's why we have a trial by jury. Unfortunately, it's been usurped today to a large extent, and especially in Spark versus the United States in 1895, the Supreme Court tried to limit this, that we could not judge the law, but we can. It is part of our rights and our liberties, and if the government tries to take away from us, it is wrong that they do so.
One real quick thing. Would you agree with the statement that we no longer truly have trial by jury, the trial with juries, the way of the courtroom and various precedents and all that? The juries are spoon fed now.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, and what he's asking is if do we have a trial by jury or a trial with a jury? And there's two things that are going on right now. One, we have the advent of administrative law, which circumvents our judicial system altogether in trial by jury. So administrative law is not really legal. You're hauling into court and being seen by a judge and adjudicated in that manner because there are so many laws. If you were to read the Federal Register of Laws and you average 700 pages per week, it would take you over 25,000 years to complete the whole thing. So how can anybody know what's in the law? That's why we have lawyers that specialize in certain segments of law, and then they don't even know it all. It takes a lifetime for you to keep up with it.
So we're out of this. You can't excuse it on ignorance.
With taking 25,000 years to read all the laws, can you say that definitively? With 10 fundamental laws, everybody can memorize it and they know what the deal is. But to go back to your question, today, if you look, we were guaranteed a trial by jury, and also we have a right to counsel, not an attorney. And the counsel didn't mean an attorney back then. It meant anybody who understood the law and could give you good advice. Now it's been bastardized like, oh no, you have to have an attorney, and the public's going to fund you if you don't have one. But the lawyers come in and they jury selection, they look for people that don't understand these concepts because they don't want them to know. So you're absolutely right. That's what happens, and it's subverted our justice system. We as concerned citizens should be sitting with juries and educating the juries on this principle so that they can make an educated decision and not allow our liberties to be usurped by the national government.
When they pick a jury now, don't they interview the potential jurors and each one gets to select?
That's right.
One of the 9 jurors?
That's right. Isn't that ridiculous? And it was never meant that you never knew anything about the person. You wanted somebody who knew that person who was on trial to know their character. Would they actually do this or would they not? Right, exactly. now it's like, well, if you've ever seen the guy's face on the news,